When Walt Disney needed the perfect all-American child to anchor Hollywood's so-called golden age is remembered as a time of glamour, elegance, and seemingly endless success. Black and white films flickered with perfect smiles, polished performances, and carefully crafted illusions of happiness. Studios sold dreams to audiences around the world, presenting stars as flawless icons who lived lives untouched by ordinary pain. But behind the glowing marquees and carefully staged publicity photographs existed a far darker reality. Beneath the surface, an industrial system operated with cold efficiency, one that treated human beings as raw material. The stories that follow are not isolated personal failures. They are evidence of a machine that functioned exactly as designed. She died on the floor of a squalid apartment, her body discovered only after her dog began eating her remains. He was found in an abandoned building, unidentified and buried as a John Doe for more than a year. She never lived past 40. He died looking decades older than his true age. These are not sensational anecdotes meant to shock for entertainment. They are the end results of a system that extracted everything from its stars and discarded them when they broke. This is not one tragedy. It is a pattern. Behind the dazzling image of Hollywood's golden age lurked a powerful machine that did not simply discover talent. It manufactured stars, controlled every aspect of their lives, exploited their bodies and minds, and ultimately destroyed many of them. Drugs were not an unfortunate side effect of fame. They were deliberate tools of management and control. The pills were not recreational indulgences. According to former studio doctors who worked through the 1940s and 1950s, they were professional requirements. Amphetamines were issued to keep actors awake through 18-hour shooting days. Barbiturates were used to knock them out when production finally paused. Appetite suppressants kept bodies thin. Sedatives dulled anxiety, fear, and pain. When addiction inevitably followed, studios feigned surprise, distancing themselves from the very dependencies they had engineered. The system was brutally efficient. First, build stars up and market them as flawless idols. Then, drug them to survive impossible schedules and inhuman expectations. When addiction made them unreliable or unprofitable, discard them. Finally, rewrite the narrative so their collapse appeared to be a personal moral failure rather than a predictable outcome of industrial exploitation. What makes these stories especially sickening is the hypocrisy. The same industry that handed amphetamines to 13-year-old children later blacklisted them for addiction. The same executives who kept doctors on payroll to dispense pills publicly expressed disappointment when stars lost control. Hollywood gave them the drugs, then blamed them when the drugs worked exactly as intended. Today, these stories are often dismissed as celebrity gossip or cautionary tales of excess. They are neither. They are evidence. Evidence of a system built on the systematic destruction of the very people who created its wealth. To understand the true cost of Hollywood's golden age, we begin with one of the most heartbreaking cases of all. His early live-action empire, he chose Bobby Driscoll. With expressive eyes, effortless charm, and natural talent, Driscoll became Disney's first contract child actor. He embodied wholesome family entertainment and lent his voice to Peter Pan, a character defined by eternal childhood. But childhood does not last forever. When Driscoll reached puberty and his appearance began to change, Disney discarded him with chilling speed. According to Disney historians, the studio did not simply let him go. They actively blacklisted him, warning other studios that he was difficult to work with. The same company that had worked him 60-hour weeks as a child ensured he would never find employment again. The psychological devastation was immediate. Imagine being one of the most celebrated children in America one day and treated as worthless the next. Driscoll was sent back to regular school, unprepared for a life outside fame. Classmates bullied him, resenting his former success while mocking his fall. His confidence collapsed as his identity disintegrated. By 17, he was self-medicating. It began with alcohol and escalated to heroin. Before his death, he confided to a friend that Disney had taught him how to use drugs. He had been given pills to stay awake and pills to sleep before he even understood what addiction meant. The irony is unbearable. A company synonymous with childhood innocence introduced pharmaceuticals to a child as professional tools while he was still losing baby teeth. By his early 20s, Driscoll's life was in freefall. Arrests for drug possession followed. Comeback attempts failed. He grew increasingly desperate to escape the identity of a child star no one wanted anymore. In 1968, children playing in an abandoned tenement in New York's East Village discovered a body lying on a cot, surrounded by empty beer bottles and religious pamphlets. With no identification and a face unrecognizable from childhood fame, the man was buried as a John Doe on Hart Island. Nearly a year passed before fingerprint records revealed the truth. The body belonged to Bobby Driscoll. He was 31 years old. Disney never acknowledged his death. Judy Garland was MGM's chemical casualty. The most horrifying aspect of Judy Garland's story is not how it ended, but how it began. Studio executives forced pills on her when she was just 13 years old. MGM doctors administered amphetamines while her mother watched, disguising them as harmless pep pills. When Garland felt hungry, she was given appetite suppressants. When the stimulants made sleep impossible, she was given barbiturates. This was not occasional medication. It was systematic chemical control of a child's body to maintain punishing production schedules for The Wizard of Oz and subsequent films. By 16, Garland was fully dependent on the cycle of uppers and downers. Studio executives monitored her weight, controlled her dosages, and managed her developing body through pharmaceuticals. She was given pills to wake up, pills to sleep, pills to eat, and pills to stop eating. Then she was lectured about self-control when she could no longer function without the very chemicals forced upon her. When MGM finally fired her in 1950 after 15 years of chemical manipulation, they offered no rehabilitation and accepted no responsibility. They labeled her difficult and unreliable. Garland died alone in a rented London bathroom at 47, her body aged decades beyond its years. Her death certificate listed her occupation as singer and actress, erasing the truth that she had also been a victim of studio-engineered addiction. Gail Russell's destruction followed a different path but ended the same way. Russell did not turn to alcohol for pleasure. She turned to it for survival. Pathologically shy and crippled by stage fright, she trembled before cameras and sometimes vomited before scenes. Instead of offering training or psychological support, Paramount told her to drink. Crew members routinely handed her alcohol before difficult scenes because it was faster and cheaper than compassion. The drinking that began as studio-sanctioned coping quickly evolved into full-blown alcoholism. Russell was never interested in being an actress at all. She had been discovered while attending art school, pursuing her real passion. The studio seized on her beauty, forced her into a career that terrified her, and chemically numbed her fear until it destroyed her. She died alone in her apartment in 1961, surrounded by empty bottles. She was 36 years old. Her body was not discovered for days. Montgomery Clift's downfall came through pain. After a devastating car accident in 1956, Clift's face was permanently altered and his identity shattered. Doctors prescribed overlapping painkillers without monitoring dosages or interactions. Alcohol was added to the mix. The result was iatrogenic addiction, a dependency created by medical treatment itself. Once one of Hollywood's most reliable actors, Clift struggled to remember lines. His hands shook. His speech slurred. Studios worked around his condition rather than addressing its cause. He died in 1966 at 45, surrounded by more than 30 prescription bottles. Bela Lugosi, immortalized as Dracula, was destroyed by chronic pain and morphine dependence. Barbara Payton fell from studio star to street prostitution in less than a decade. Errol Flynn consumed alcohol, opiates, cocaine, and barbiturates until his body resembled that of a 70-year-old man at 50. John Drew Barrymore became the middle chapter in a 3-generation cycle of addiction that nearly destroyed his daughter Drew. Each case is unique, yet the pattern never changes. Drugs were introduced as solutions to fear, pain, exhaustion, or pressure. Dependency followed. Careers collapsed. The industry walked away. These stars were not destroyed by drugs alone. They were destroyed by an industry that normalized chemical dependence, extracted profit from vulnerability, and discarded human beings once their suffering became inconvenient. The pill-pushing machine did not stop with the Golden Age. It merely evolved. The substances changed, but the pressure remained. Until the underlying system changes, these stories will continue to repeat.